Right, let's get cracking with the show. We had the news this week, Joe, didn't we? That the Premier League transfer window will be open for basically it's a special window this summer to account for the Club World Cup. So a lot of talk about transfers, and also I don't think anyone missed the news about Trent now supposedly edging closer to joining Real Madrid. Nothing confirmed as of yet, but it did get a lot of people talking about transfers, didn't it?
Yeah, so obviously we've opened the transfer.
Yeah,
we've gone back to the well. Dip back into the well. We'll go there again. Today we've asked both of our guests to pick one player that each Premier League club should be signing this summer. You've got 10 each. We'll flip-flop it. Starting with Arsenal, Jimbo, you're up first. Who do you think Arsenal should target this summer?
So, I thought I'd just, chuck out a bit of a different name. There's obviously the obvious ones that everyone's spoken about. I wanted to put forward Retegui. Because in terms of what Arsenal need, and look, if you can get Isak, that would be great. There's been chat about Ekitike. But Retegui is a really good first-touch scorer in the penalty box. He's had a great season. I think he's got 22 goals in the league. 8 with his right foot, 9 with his left foot, 5 with his head. So he can score any kind of type of goal in the penalty box. And I think if they want someone that can come in, and there might be games where you don't play him, but you do play him, I think he's a really solid shout in terms of having that striker that every Arsenal fan has been screaming about. I was here with Robbie a while back, and he was very clear of what he wanted. He wanted a striker. He is a striker.
Do you think that Arsenal fans, though, would be happy with that name? Do you know what I mean? It feels a little bit like the narrative around that signing, that position is so high profile now that if Retegui was the option, I think a few Arsenal fans would be maybe a little bit underwhelmed.
Yeah, I get your point. I think, who was it? Mancini said, he scores goals and that's not peanuts. And that sort of stuck with me. And the point I'm making here is that you need that guy that you either chuck him on or you play him and he's going to take that chance when you need them to. That's the thing that's been put at Arsenal. But I think he's not so outrageously up there that he could come in and be a part of the squad. And there might be games where you take him out. I don't think that's the worst thing.
Yes, what's your thought on this one? Because this is James's pick. He is top scorer in Serie A. I think he's 25 years of age. So what sort of price tag are you looking at? Because it's interesting that you make the comparison. Arsenal fans want an Isak. We know that. They want, and I'm like, what do you think sort of price-wise you'd be looking at?
I mean, Atalanta, whenever they do sell players, it is typically for a lot of money. Well, Koopmeiners in the summer was, I think, around 40, 50 something. Lookman would probably command a similar price.
Boylan was 64.
Yeah. So
I think he's been linked with Juventus and a few other teams as well. So I think they're all kind of ready for him to go. And so it might be one that is possible. I just wanted to explore.
It's an interesting shout.
I think you lose.
Stick him up.
I think Lookman is probably more certain to go this summer. Maybe keeps him at the club, but that's a really good shout.
Especially with the fallout with Gasperini earlier in the year.
We're flip-flopping this, so it is Lies next for an Aston Villa. So one player you think Aston Villa should sign. You've gone Brahim Diaz. Interesting shout.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, actually?
Diaz?
In midweek, or these past 2 weeks, Monchi has actually kind of been speaking to the media about how they had an interest in Arda Güler and potentially bringing him on loan. And they're looking for a guy who kind of plays in between the lines, comes off the right, and that's why they kind of looked at the profile of Arda Güler. But I think Real Madrid, at least at the time being, kind of see him as they want to keep him at the club. They want him to develop here. Maybe in the future that's something they kind of explore more. But when I look at Brahim Diaz, I see him in terms of a similar mold of, again, a player who plays in between the lines, left footer coming off the right. And I think I've really been impressed with him over the last year at Real Madrid, because I think before this season I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, you know what, you're decent off the bench, but are you really Real Madrid caliber? But every time I watch him for Real Madrid, in fact, when he is called upon, he comes up with the goods. Like, he's scored big goals in the last 2 years against Leipzig, against Manchester City, against Atletico in the league recently, or in the Champions League, excuse me. And I look at how much he's played at Real Madrid. This season, he's probably played more than I would have expected, but that's also due to injury. But when everyone is fit, how much of a key component is he to that team? Probably not huge. And I think if he were to make the jump to Aston Villa, he's going to have a much bigger kind of platform to show his skills. And I think this year he's kind of proven that he's ready to kind of take that leap.
I love this as a shout. Like, I put him forward for Arsenal that Robbie episode because I think he's brilliant, and I think he kind of needs to spread his wings because he's got to a point where he should want to be starting and playing every single game. And is he ever really going to wholeheartedly get that at Real Madrid? If Villa could get him, that would be so exciting.
I don't think it's out of the realms. Look, they're saying they have Asensio at the club, Rashford at the club. Like, I don't think this is out of the realms of possibility. This kind of thing.
Okay, stick it up.
Let's talk about Bournemouth. I think this one's quite a difficult one because obviously Bournemouth fluctuating between European football, non-European football. Is Iraola going to stay? There's a bit of turnover potentially happening with players in the summer. So who you putting forward, Jimbo?
I've gone for Nathaniel Brown. Now, I think with Bournemouth, there's a lot of players that could likely go this summer. There's a manager that could go this summer, if you want to believe the rumours. And I think Kerkez is one that there's been a few comments from him this week, links with Liverpool, I think, and a few other teams are after him as well. And so I think I wanted someone who was quite attacking. Nathaniel Brown at Frankfurt is very composed, likes to get forward, can drive with the ball as well. Kind of a mix between like maybe Mendes and Anthony Robinson. And he's young, under 21 for Germany, can play right back, can play left back as well. Attacking numbers are good. And actually his defensive numbers are fantastic. So he's just very complete, young, fits what Bournemouth have been achieving with the players that they've brought in and then maybe looking to sell. And I think they could do the same with him.
Stick him up. It's interesting. I think that might be affecting one of the other incomings later on that you alluded to as well. So, yeah, good shout, Jimbo. Next up, Brentford. Who you gone for, Lies?
I've gone for Davide Fratesi. I looked at Brentford, right? And the two midfield positions between Janel and Norgard. I realized they've played over 80% of the minutes for Brentford this season. Typically, it's kind of been rotated in the past few seasons with Jensen, but he's had some injury problems, and it's really been those two. So I kind of looked, what kind of depth could you potentially find, or maybe a different kind of option? I looked at Inter, and I was considering Aslani, and I was considering Fratesi. I look at Aslani, I think he's a bit similar to Norgard in terms of like deep-lying playmaker. This guy maybe gives you a bit different in terms of going forward, carrying the ball, getting in goal-scoring positions. He is out of favor at Inter. Him and Aslani really haven't been able to break into that midfield, which is so established. And, yeah, I think Brentford, right, they have a pretty strong 11, and maybe it is difficult to break into that squad, but I think this could be a potential new lease of life for him.
Love that shout. All right, let's get him up.
Big signing for Brentford.
Big signing, yeah. Dipping into the Inter Milan pool.
That'd be a big signing, that.
Jimbo.
I've gone for Vanderson at Brighton. I'm looking at that Brighton squad, which has outrageous depth. And I guess there's a possibility that they might sell one or two in the summer. And I think when I'm looking at that team, I think they're at a stage where you can spend a juicy amount on a right back. I think that's okay for where they're at with the depth they've got elsewhere. Vanderson's not your normal Brazilian fullback. He's not Cafu. He's fine from an attacking point of view, but defensively very, very strong and steady as well. And I think on that right-hand side, when you've got Estupiñán who wants to bomb on that a little bit more, generally they played Veltman on the right-hand side. I think this is a bit of an upgrade. He's been linked with Barcelona. He's been linked with a few teams. But I think it might cost like 40 plus, maybe even more, and maybe he might not want that. He might want to wait for one of the big boys. But I think
Barcelona linked to him recently.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I think if you can get it done, I think it's one where Brighton can be a little bit punchier than we know they normally are. And it would elevate, I think, their team quite a bit, in particular their first.
They have been spending a lot of money recently, haven't they? So,
yeah,
they've made a lot, haven't they, for outgoings as well, certainly. OK, let's move on to Chelsea. The interesting talking point, you've gone with a keeper. Yeah. And before we go on to talk about who you've picked, how important is and how... Talk to me about the sort of goalkeeping situation Chelsea have found themselves in, because the amount of different goalies they've utilised, not just this season, but if you look at the last 4 or 5 seasons, is this an area that they just have to address for you in the summer?
100%. I think in general, right, and we're going to talk about this when we get to United as well, too. I'm of a firm belief that there's a few positions that I consider non-negotiables. Yeah. Like, you cannot compromise the quality there. Other positions, maybe you don't have to have the best in class at that position, but a bad goalkeeper or a goalkeeper off form can completely ruin any good kind of thing your team is doing. And I look at Chelsea, right? They haven't been perfect all season, but there have been moments in the season where no matter what they're doing, they have a guy in goal that you can never kind of trust. And I think that's been the case, honestly, since they lost Courtois. I know Edouard Mendy gave you that one season when they won the Champions League, but it's really been a problem position for Chelsea after so many years of checking Courtois. I think they got to dip back into the market. And I know it hasn't been something that under Clear Lake they've really prioritized, but they need to go and sign best in class in this position. And Mike Maignan, when I look at the goalkeepers out there who would be maybe attainable, and I kind of hold to that standard, this is one of the best goalkeepers in the world, easily. And the worry for him in the past has been his injuries, but this season, he's been fit the entire year. And he's shown, even in a struggling Milan team, and in the French national team as well, too, since replacing Lloris, this guy's one of the best in the world.
What do you think, Jimbo?
Yeah, I like it. It's clearly an area where they need to get it sorted out. I think. How many have they got though? Like
7, I think, on the books. Mike Penders, obviously one of the most highly rated young goalkeepers in the world. They've got on loan as well. Petrovic on loan.
Yeah, I think it's an upgrade for the first 11, isn't it? Quite clearly. So yeah, I think it's a great show.
Can you see that move happening?
Let's get out.
Just interestingly, because obviously Milan, Chelsea, look at the goalkeeper positions.
That's the problem.
Is that a realistic one that you can see? Just quickly.
I don't know. I think
not
the
a
Chelsea
29
money situation is always
29. This Chelsea.
Yeah, maybe
goalkeeper though, man.
Maybe they'll allow one or two.
I mean, talking of realistic, Jimbo, this next one from you, I think,
Right, hear me out.
You're not having this.
Hear me out.
Joe's not having this.
Can we just explore this for a second?
I'm happy to explore it. Go ahead.
Sancho to Crystal Palace. Born in Camberwell.
Talk to me about the wage situation we're seeing here.
Okay, so what I'm saying, is there a deal?
Let him give his explanation, Joe.
Is there a deal here where Mateta goes the other way, you get Sancho and a bit of money?
Now you piqued his interest.
Right, here we are. and in terms of those wages, which I agree are obviously quite high, you use that money for Sancho's wages. Because I think the quality that Sancho has, that you've seen over his career...
Surely United would have to give money to Palace with Sancho.
Yeah.
But United are going to have to give money to anybody to get rid of Sancho. Let's be very clear about that.
And let's also be honest, he's going to go... I think he'll probably go to Borussia Dortmund.
Do you? I think he's going to stay at
so?
Chelsea. I think Chelsea will actually lock down that deal. I know we've seen reports that he could go back £5 million.
Yeah, it's interesting about the clause, though, wasn't it, this week? The clause that says he can go back for the £5 million.
I would be surprised to see that.
It does suggest that it's an interesting summer for Sancho. Well, where do you think he'll be this summer?
Beats me, man.
Do you think he'll be back at United?
Be Chelsea.
I hope not. If I'm being absolutely honest, I don't know where he's going to go. But when I look at his performance level for Chelsea this season, if Chelsea are genuinely willing to pay money not to have him, I think it's an indictment on kind of his trajectory since leaving Borussia Dortmund. I hear the point about going back, but they had the opportunity to bring him in the summer, and they chose not to. So,
but the one thing I'll say is, in terms of the fit with him in that Palace team, if you can get him in that team, that is really, really exciting. He has had a difficult few years. I think he'd still be in the Premier League with a team that's overall exciting. And in terms of Man United wanting to get a striker, maybe there's something to be done there. Maybe I'm being romantic, but I think if you're Palace, you wouldn't mind that.
Hey, I think for his sake, he should look to leave England. I think he should look for a continental move.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Everton.
Nothing wrong with being romantic, Jimbo. Let's go to Everton. Lias, who you gone for?
I've gone for Kyle Walker-Peters.
Shout.
Yeah. Southampton are all but relegated. I think their manager, he literally said it himself. And I look at Everton, right? Obviously, that's been a position that has been tied down for so long by Seamus Coleman, and Ashley Young has done a really good job in the last few years as well, too. But obviously, as well, too, with the new takeover that's kind of happened, I think they need to dip into the market and find a right back.
I think
Walker-Peters is a really good guy.
He's actually obviously a decent player. Was breaking in with Spurs when they sold him. An achievable player as well. And
I was surprised he got relegated. I was surprised
at.
he went down with them in the first place. I was pretty sure that he was going to stay up.
There's a lot of clubs linked with him, weren't there, at the time?
Yeah, I think he's a really good right back.
Yeah, I agree.
Fulham.
Hayden Hackney. I saw him recently at Loftus Road. He was brilliant. And quite complete. Depending on if you might like this, you might not. But he's got a bit of a Jordan Henderson vibe to him at times. Played for the under-21s this week. Scored. The goal was made by him pressing and winning the ball. And if you look at the other players in that midfield line, it's Harvey Elliott, it's Amari Hutchinson, it's Waneri's in that team, Hinchelwood's in that team. All Premier League quality, and I think he's got that as well. I think he's just what Fulham need as well, and he's young.
I think he's really good on the ball as well. I think he's the most progressive passer of any player in the Championship.
Yeah. And he's having his best scoring season as well of his career this season. Really, really tight. It's a really, really good shout. Next up, now, yes, you're suggesting a forward, right? Which would suggest that you think Ipswich are going to lose
Liam Delap. Yeah. I mean, this one was very difficult because obviously I don't want to write off Ipswich in terms of this relegation battle. They'd obviously want to stay up, but I think regardless, I do think Liam Delap will be someone they really struggle to kind of keep a hold of. And, I think, look, Jayden Dens obviously was supposed to make the move to Sunderland, has been riddled of injuries since then. But I know what I saw from him in those brief cameos of Liverpool. This kid has a lot of quality. And I think a move, whether it's staying in the Premier League of Ipswich or even dipping his feet in the Championship, I think it'll do a lot of good for him. And I think he's top.
I think the biggest thing about Jayden Dens is as well, that Liverpool went through that period where they were giving loads of youth that chance. If you think of the Carabao Cup they won last season, it was only Van Dijk that was recognisable. They had that period where they were giving so many youth players, a chance. And he was actually the youngest player to make a start for Liverpool in a European competition, which when you think of the players Liverpool have had historically, must show how much they rate him.
Good as well, too. Honestly, he's a natural goal scorer.
Yeah. Needs a season in the Championship, doesn't he? Though? So if they do go down, it works.
Leicester?
I've gone for Josh Sargent. His conversion rate's the best it's been since he's been with Norwich. 24%, 12 goals this season. A few injuries here and there. He's actually only 25. And I think with Leicester, who I expect to go down this season as well, I think in the striker position you need a Championship bagsman. And that's what Sargent will provide. Obviously, Vardy's, he'll never stop playing football, but he's getting a little bit older. Yeah. And I think the striker position is an area that they need to improve to fire them straight back up.
All right. Let's go to Liverpool.
This is one of the hardest. Well, it's this one not in particular.
Because Jimbo referenced him earlier with regards to his Bournemouth sex. You're both on the same page. I think this is a good shout.
I think it's the most obvious shout because with Liverpool, there's a lot of uncertainties this summer. Obviously, the future of Salah and Van Dijk. Trent, as we know, it's not confirmed yet, but it does look like he could be on the way out. So, and it looks like they're going to heavily reinforce that attack. But I just don't know, what does an Arne Slot center forward look like if given the funds? What does an Arne Slot left wing? That remains to be seen. I think there's a lot of options there. But I think a left back has been an area all season that you could say Robertson has given you some moments. Tsimikas off the bench, I think, has given you some solid minutes as well, too. But I think there is room for improvement. And in Kirkes, you have a young left back that could potentially give you the same amount of years of service that Robertson did. And in my opinion, this season has been one of the best in the league.
Jimbo?
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Yeah, how are Liverpool going to attack next season? Because I think if he plays, he stays high up. Yeah. That's been a big thing with Bournemouth, that got some of the quality of Huijsen, that Kirkes just goes. He's just up there. So in terms of playing a different way as a left back, it'll be interesting to see how he acclimatises to Liverpool if he were to go there. But the energy that he has is scary.
It's very Liverpool, isn't it? I think
very
the energy off the
I think
ball
he's very
is
adaptable. If you look at the way he plays, he's a very adaptable player that would fit into multiple systems. I mean, he's had the most distance, sprints, open play crosses for Bournemouth in the Premier League.
21.
Regular man of the matches. Player of the match was the assist against Spurs, but the goals that he's
he looks like a
in
natural
well.
Robertson replacement, honestly.
He's got so much to his game that I think he would fit any system, and I think it's a good shout.
OK, Man City.
I've got for Danny Olmo. Again, just let's have a chat. Can we just here on the sofa? Can we just have a chat? My point with Danny Olmo is Barcelona's financial position has been shaky for some time, and they were only just about to able to register him.
The registration, yeah.
And I think with the players that cannot go, you need to kind of look elsewhere. He's had a few injury problems here and there. I think Man City would love to have him. I think he's an outstanding player. The other thing down the road I'm thinking about is with Lewandowski. Again, he's incredible, but at some point you're going to have to bring in a new central striker, and that's going to cost a lot of money. So I think it might be one where they might just go, look, we could get so much money for this guy right now, and we've still got all this talent in this midfield. Maybe we'll just take the money this time.
Where do you see him fitting in at City, though? Because I look at Manchester City, and personally, whenever I come on this show, we did something with Bouvy, 5 players City should sign. I looked at more, maybe a little more unrealistic as well, too, but I looked at Wirtz in terms of a more a creative kind of number 10. He strikes me more as somebody who really comes alive inside the box on the half turn. Similar, in my opinion, to Foden a little bit in the way they kind of execute things.
I think that, they need to evolve a little bit, Man City, but I think he can help provide a bit of a filler for those KDB numbers. He's not KDB.
No,
he's not. Yeah. But Wirtz, I think, is going to Bayern Munich as well. So that's what I kind of put him out to the side.
OK, let's cross Manchester.
And obviously, he's so neat and tidy. He's very good.
No,
come on, Elias, what you got?
Man United fan. One player you want United to sign.
Victor Osimhen. Yeah. Okay. I think, again, every time I'm on the show, I say it, like, Man United need a center forward. They need a center forward. They need a center forward. They need a center forward. And as I said about Chelsea, I think there's some positions that you cannot they're non-negotiables. It's very rare that you see a team in this league perform well to their expectation without a guy that can regularly score goals. And Man United this season have a striker that has 1 in 20. Xerxes, I think, is like 1 in 15 or 16. Garnacho is like 1 in 20. Come on, man. Like, Bruno Fernandes is the only guy in this team as a midfielder that is anywhere near reliable in front of goal. And I know Ineos's MO in the summer is going to be signing players of a certain age, similar to what Chelsea are kind of doing. But I think at some point you have to dip your feet in the market and buy a guy that is some kind of guarantee. And I think Victor Osimhen right now is arguably the biggest opportunity signing in the market in terms of quality compared to how much he would cost. He's at Galatasaray at the moment because of bad luck. Let's be real. And if this guy becomes available, I think every team that needs a center forward should be looking at him. With 60 million for a guy that probably guarantees you 15 to 20 goals. That's a no-brainer.
And Amorim needs a striker.
And I think he's his kind of striker, too, in terms of how he utilized Gyökeres, running the channels, dragging back forwards, being a physical presence. He's a no-brainer for me.
Let's get him up then. Newcastle.
OK.
This had a lot of chat going midweek, didn't it, Jimbo? This suggestion.
Yes. What,
rumours of £100 million price tag being placed on Tyler Dibblick's head midweek.
Yeah, he's linked with Man City, linked with Tottenham, but reports are that Southampton want a figure of that price tag if they were to let him go?
They can want whatever they want, man.
I mean, you can chuck any number. I think, look, with respect, I don't see that happening personally. But it's a starting point where then, the other... I'm sorry, I'm buying a house at the moment, so I know what to go to your house. Basically, that's how it works. Then you get in the middle, don't you? And I think that's... With Tyler Dibley, the thing I love about Newcastle as a pick for him is I think it's not the same amount of pressure. Of course, up in Newcastle, it is, it's everything to them. But Jacob Murphy's done nothing wrong. He's been actually really, really great.
Amazing this season.
So I think in terms of the development of Tyler Dibley, to go there and go play on that right-hand side, but if he needs to come out and you want to put Jacob Murphy in there for a bit, you're absolutely fine. Jacob Murphy still feels important and valuable, but he can help sort of nurture Tyler Dibley without the scrutiny of being at Man City or Liverpool or Arsenal. I think that would be the best for the boy.
Do you?
I like that shot a lot.
And stuff.
Interesting.
Get him away from the toxic environments,
Okay, next up, Nottingham Forest, Lies.
I've gone for
with a player that I think is going to be heavily linked with a number of clubs. What a season he's having. The numbers that he's putting up, respectfully, for the club that he's at that end of the table. And he's got a buyout clause.
And a lot of
but you're saying Forest.
A lot of reports actually saying that Forest are prepared to actually break their transfer record and bring him in, right? Matheus Cunha obviously has been terrific for Wolves, and in my opinion, is probably the overwhelming factor in why they might stay up in the league this season.
Definitely.
He's been everything and more for
15
them.
goals, 4 assists, and 29 comps.
You know what it is? He's just like a maverick. You talk about, I don't want to say he's a one-man team, because that sounds disrespectful to Wolves, but from an attacking point of view, he is their attack. Now, Forest, there's a huge chance that they could be playing Champions League football, and they have a very good starting 11, but it's also a starting 11 that has avoided any kind of injury. I think they're not the fittest team. What's the correct way? They're the team that have suffered the least amount of injuries to their team, bar the 2 that they suffered early on in Danilo and Sangare. But going into the Champions League, we know that stretches your team thin. And I think from an attacking point of view, this kind of profile might be the one they're kind of missing. They have speed for days in the likes of Elanga, Cho, Chris Wood has been incredible. But I think Cunha gives them a bit of magic that maybe they're missing at the moment. And when you go to the Champions League, that might be the caliber of player that could, like Villa are doing this year, give you a deep run.
I think there'll be other clubs in for him. I think that would be
But
big signing for Forest. Big signing for Forest. I think a lot of clubs are going to be in for him.
For sure, Arsenal, Liverpool. But I think for the way he plays in terms of his maverick style, I think it suits him.
I think it's a really good
Southampton, tough one because they're doomed. So
nice, Joe. Dennis Serkin. Left back for Sunderland. Depends if Sunderland go up. If they go up, then I think he'd obviously stay there. But he's got a lot of good Championship minutes. You've got Carl Walker-Peters there that I agree will go, and so you need to kind of find a replacement there, and that's why I put him forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. 5 mil maybe.
Former Spurs man. Let's go on to Spurs next. Youth team player at Tottenham, of course. Who are you going with for Tottenham? I'm intrigued to get your reasoning for this.
Gustav Isaksen, Again, a player that actually has been linked to Spurs recently. He's having a real breakout year for Lazio this year, and I watched him in particular against Portugal these past weeks. Unbelievable. Like this, and you know what it is? He's a very rare profile for a winger. Like he's upright, he's tall, the way he dribbles is a bit unorthodox. If I'm being honest, right, he reminds me of a quicker Adnan Januzaj in terms of the way he dribbles at players.
He's quite versatile, isn't he, as well? Because he can play up front, he can play on the wing, which I think, as a Spurs fan, that profile of player for the Ange system
is
quite important. It's exactly why he looked at Tel. I know it's early days with Tel, but effectively he can play as a 9 when Solanke doesn't play. He can play out wide when Solanke does play. You can move Son about. So I think Spurs will be in the market, depending on what happens with the Tel deal, for a versatile forward that can play across the front. Is that part of your reasoning for picking
100%. And look, Brennan Johnson has put up some really good numbers individually, but I do think personally that you can improve on him. I don't think he is the best winger, outside of his end product. I think there is a bit lacking there. And when you look at the young kind of front line that Spurs are building with Odoberg on the left as well, too, Solanke, I think next season will have a much better year than he's had this year. I think he could potentially add to that.
Jimbo, as a neutral, where do you think the most important area Tottenham should strengthen is? Because people have mentioned midfielders, they've mentioned centre-backs, they've mentioned versatile wide players. What do you think is the number one area they need to address in the summer?
I think that the midfield has been quite confused this season.
A lot of chopping and changing.
I really like Basuma. I wanted him to be that that guy, but for whatever reason, the form's not totally been there. Bentancur, I sort of struggle with sometimes as well. And so I think you want that six that is there every single time, just running the game, owning the game. I think the midfield is an area to look at.
I think the midfield, the only reason I hesitated is because you have Bergvall and Archie Gray, who are kind of seen as the future for Spurs.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
what kind of, do you buy a guy who's on top at the moment and maybe stifle their development? I'm not sure.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
West Ham.
Yes. Nick Woltemade.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, a goal.
He's a big boy. He's 6'6".
He moves nice with the ball, though. The goal he scored the other week. Unbelievable.
He's got a goal against Wolfsburg. I would say go check that out, people, because it was a bit had like Ibra vibes.
Yeah.
He's just going
nutmegs.
Yep. He's a bit of
What's
a
that little dancer?
It's got a yeah, a new word. Big lad. What I like about him is that in the middle third he'll be that target man and can play as a 10 as well, or in a 4-2-2-2. But for West Ham, to have someone like that to get it and then lay it off and allow those runners to kind of go past him, I really like that for West Ham. But then when he gets further up the pitch, he then starts to get side on and almost plays a bit more of an advanced forward. And he's young as well. So I think he'd be a really good fit for West Ham, who've got a few elder forwards.
Yeah, still only 23. Stick him down. We'll go to the final club, Lies. So you suggested, I think a lot of people would agree with you, Matches Cunha likely to leave. Who'd you bring in for Wolves?
My countryman, Amora. This guy just scored a hat-trick for Algeria against Mozambique. And look, in terms of... He isn't a like-for-like replacement with Cunha because he's a bit of a... This guy's a bit more of a technician, a bit more of a creator. But in terms of a guy who kind of drifts off the left, plays it in behind the striker, speed for days, goal-scoring instincts, I think Amora has had a real breakthrough for Wolfsburg. I'm saying Wolfsburg to Wolves, it makes sense in that regard as well, too. Algerian teammate, Ait Nouri there as well, too. And I think he's a real one to look out for this window.
OK, stick him up. So there's confirmation of one player that James and Lies think each Premier League club should sign this summer. Let us know what you think of those picks at home. Enjoyed that. Some good picks there. Some rogue ones as well, but mainly speaking, some very good shouts. Yeah. Let us know what you think.